Well, it's endured pretty well over the past 20 years. If we look at when I started my career, 1994, that was the year that Netscape launched, the world's first internet browser, and suddenly the internet was with us. And newspapers really struggled to cope with that. People could read their news online, and newspapers suffered. Radio, though, hasn't really suffered in the same way, because people often listen in their cars. And still, the best way to listen to music or listen to news when you're in your car is the radio. Now, that may change when we have news or music on demand in our cars, if we've got Spotify or Pandora or podcasts easily available in our cars. At the moment, though, to be honest, it's still a bit fiddly to use our phone to listen to a podcast or listen to some music on Spotify in our car, and it uses up data. So we still listen to the radio. Now, over time that will change as technology does, and that will lead to a change in news and the way that radio presents news. But I think it's got all the studies I've read, and I did my master's thesis in this, suggest that particularly news radio in traditional linear AM or FM broadcast actually has quite a long future ahead of it. That's a really interesting question, and we are adapting. And the first thing that radio did to adapt was to put all of its content, or much of its content, online as podcasts. And that was okay. Some people will download a podcast and listen to it, but what we've learned about social media in particular is that it's a visual medium. It's not an audio medium, it's a visual medium. Snap, Facebook, Twitter, whatever it may be. So you'll see in all the radio studios here, we've all got cameras now, so we record videos. Our interviews go out on Facebook. So when we're doing social media, and we take it very seriously, it has to be visual. So we're all now TV presenters as well as radio presenters. And when we move to our new studio in 3 months' time, then the video equipment and the way we process that will be even more sophisticated, because people want very small, bite-sized chunks of video to consume content online. And radio stations across the world are doing this. Ryan Seacrest, for example, does it brilliantly well with his show out of Los Angeles. Lots of video clips from inside the studio, incredibly popular. Two or three things, yes. Firstly, in terms of broadcast versus print journalism, I was taught that print journalism is a medium of record. All the detail has to be there, whereas broadcast is a medium of impression. So when you're watching the TV news, you get a sense of what's happening with the pictures and the words, but never great detail. And it's the same with radio. We're telling a story in people's minds, but we won't give a huge amount of detail. When you're listening, it's hard to consume detail. But when you're leaning forward and reading a magazine or a website or a newspaper, then you can take in more detail. So those, I would say, are the fundamental differences. Radio, a medium of impression, and print, a medium of record. I don't think there is, no, because I think newsreaders have always been celebrities. You look back to Walter Cronkite in the United States 50, 60 years ago. He was a celebrity. You've got people like Richard Quest on CNN and many others like them. So no, journalists, high-profile journalists, like high-profile fielded any people, will stand out. They will have a following. I don't see that necessarily as being any different to what we've had in the past. The vast majority of radio journalists will not be celebrities. They will just be doing their job. One or two will have that kind of following, but they will be the exception. My advice would be, don't think of yourself as a radio journalist or TV journalist or print journalist or whatever it may be. You need to be a multimedia journalist, but perhaps even more than that, you need to be a multimedia content creator and a multimedia storyteller. You need all the tools in your box. You need to be able to edit audio, you need to be able to edit video, you need to understand the principles of screen making. And these change all the time as tastes change, but you have to understand that. The fundamentals of storytelling will endure. They're the same as they were in Shakespeare's time, in Aristotle's time. The classic three-arc story structure is enduring, but you have to be more broad-based. Multimedia, content creator, storyteller, and that's what you are.